Hello, and welcome to the webinar, How to Keep Your Data Secure in a World of Cyber Threats. My name is Eric Wallace with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have a few administrative details to share with you, then I'll turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, we would like to thank Rubrik for their partnership with today's event. They've been wonderful partners to Argyle, and they're committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. Thank you again to Rubrik. We appreciate you joining us today. We welcome you to stay connected during today's event. For those of you who are active tweeters, please follow us on Twitter at Argyle Exec Forum, and be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. I also wanted to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. We've worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you, so please submit all questions that come up during today's event into the chat section of the interface. Following the discussion, we've set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Now, without further delay, I'll introduce our speaker, and then we'll begin our presentation. Today, we have Zoltan Dijk, who is Director, Product Marketing, Security at Rubrik. Welcome, Zoltan. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much to our audience today for attending this webinar, where we'll be covering your secret weapon against cyber attacks, your data. My name is Zoltan Dijk, and I'm a Director of Product Marketing here at Rubrik. And I wanted to walk you through some of the challenges organizations are facing today, particularly with things like ransomware and some of the unique capabilities that Rubrik offers, and how we've been helping our customers be better prepared as well as respond more effectively to emerging threats. All right, let's get started here. So there's a number of ways to think about this new emerging world that was especially accelerated during the last several years of the pandemic. Of course, digital transformation is something that has been talked about for a while now, but especially over the past several years, there's been such increased digitization of applications and data. Digital footprints for organizations have just grown incredibly quickly. This has led to a greater attack surface for organizations. And when there's more of a target, attackers will go big game hunting. And that means organizations have been hit by ransomware a lot more. As you can see, about 2/3 of organizations have been struck by ransomware in the last year. And the average cost to remediate those attacks is north of $1 million. And of course, that varies depending on the size of the target and the amount of data and applications that were affected. But regardless, that's a lot of money. It's not a small problem, and not one organizations can shy away from. And to make matters worse, the actual time it takes organizations to recover is about a month. Now, I don't care what industry you're in, that amount of time is just not tolerable. You know, healthcare, financial services, mission critical industries, or otherwise, you can't have your entire business shut down for over a month. It's tremendously painful with both direct and indirect costs, and regulatory issues depending on the industry. So there's a multitude of reasons why this situation just doesn't work for businesses today. So why are these attacks so successful? Well, traditionally, cybersecurity tools have focused on infrastructure security around prevention, detection, and investigation. But infrastructure security is primarily focused on protecting systems, users, networks, and applications, not on securing data itself, which is every organization's most valuable asset. Despite all the investments in infrastructure security, we've seen by the number of successful attacks that the risk of a breach can be reduced, but not altogether eliminated. Attackers are still getting through. Just as important as reducing the likelihood of a successful attack is reducing the impact of an attack. How quickly can businesses or how quickly can business as usual be restored if a successful attack were to happen? We feel that securing data is the only way to truly secure your business, especially at a time when ransomware is such a pervasive threat that remains really financially rewarding for attackers. We need to have a mindset of assume a breach and ensure that data is available, safe, and recoverable in the event of an incident. Because data is the target of attackers, we need security at the point of data. So data security to keep data safe and to recover it faster. And achieving the promise of zero trust security really requires more than just infrastructure security. This is where data security really comes in. Data security complements traditional infrastructure security to fully secure data assets. So secure the business and defend it against cyber attacks. When paired together, infrastructure security and data security really reduce cyber risk by reducing both the likelihood and the impact of cyber attacks. So at Rubrik, we've been a pioneer in the data protection space. But in the last few years in particular, we've built on that leadership in data protection to really become more of a data security company. And our mission is really to secure your data wherever it lives. We know organizations don't keep all their data and applications in one place. So wherever your data and applications live, we have tools that enable you to secure that data. So in the event that you're attacked, you're able to recover it quickly, making your business unstoppable. To do that, we think about the problem from end to end, not just focusing on one particular segment like data loss prevention or data classification, but thinking about it in a more holistic way so that everything from being able to secure your data, being able to continuously monitor it for threats, to then being able to surgically recover. We can provide all of that in one unified platform, wherever that data is, in the cloud, on-premise, or in SaaS applications. So we see data security as made up of three major pillars: data resilience, data observability, and of course, remediation. So why are some of these areas so challenging for organizations, and how do we address that to make them a little less challenging? First, let's look at data resilience. This is an area that's been a big challenge for organizations. Attackers are smart enough to know that backups are a first line of defense, so they go about trying to encrypt the backup itself. And there are a number of questions that organizations struggle with when they're thinking about a backup environment. Are there fail-safes? Can retention rules put in place be tampered with? Can admin accounts be compromised? Can backups be modified or deleted or seen by attackers? All of these questions are things that organizations face when thinking about whether they have data resilience. And we've tried to address them with our solution, right? So what we've done is taken a really robust set of security controls and embedded them directly into our platform. So we've made this a core part of how Rubrik works. What we want to do is secure your data and applications from these external threats through a number of different technologies. And I'll go through these pretty quickly, but you can certainly visit our website for more detail. So for example, we have a logical air gap. And a lot of people talk about air gaps, but there are ways to breach those air gaps. But what we've done is built an air gap that's based on completely proprietary network protocols built by Rubrik. So no one knows how we're actually exchanging data inside and outside an environment, which provides an inherent layer of additional security. Also, encryption all across the board, right? So data in transit, data at rest, all encrypted with strong keys. Immutable by design, meaning that data cannot be changed, even by the admin. We use our own file system, which has an append-only notion, where updates don't overwrite the previous writes that have occurred, which mean you fundamentally can't overwrite the data, which also means an attacker cannot modify the data. So we also provide granular role-based access control all across the board, which of course is a must-have with MFA and TOTP baked into the platform. We have retention locks in place to make sure only the right people can set or reset data retention policies. So that's a measure put in place to counter attackers who come in and try to reset the retention policies so that your backups expire and then you have no way to recover. Finally, we have intelligent data lock. So this is in place because even good people may inadvertently delete data that you didn't want deleted. So we securely hold data in a sort of recycle bin notion. So if there's some sort of mistake made, you can recover from that mistake as well. We have to consider we're all human as well. So we want to protect data not only from external threats, but from accidental threats as well. Altogether, this is a very robust data resilience solution to meet the severity of the threats that we're seeing in the landscape today. Moving on to observability, you can see some of the questions here. Have there been any unusual deletions or modifications in my data? What specific files and apps have been affected? When did the malware first enter our backup? When you know you've been attacked, that's not necessarily enough, right? You need to know when so that you can go back to the appropriate restore point so you're not reintroducing malware. And finally, was there sensitive data that was impacted? Lots of great questions, right? And many legacy or passive data backup systems will store data, but not give you the ability to learn about and to analyze the data to understand what's really going on, which is really helpful and necessary for prevention, but also really critical for responding to attacks. If you're taking regular backup snapshots, you're in a good position to recruit your data in the fight against ransomware. That's because you're capturing the longitudinal time series history of data if you're protecting your data with Rubrik. Additionally, Rubrik manages metadata, including its content, users, and access privileges. By scanning hundreds of snapshots, Rubrik's data observability engine generates signals that are fed into a highly trained machine learning model, building a historical baseline against which new data can be compared to find anomalous activity. So Rubrik really addresses this by enabling you to continuously monitor your data for ransomware, sensitive data exposure, and indicators of compromise. It'll enable you to determine things like the blast radius of a ransomware attack with our ransomware monitoring and investigation by identifying abnormal deletions, modifications, and encryptions. We can reduce sensitive data exposure and manage exfiltration risk with sensitive data monitoring and management. And we can prevent malware reinfection with threat monitoring and hunting services that can find indicators of compromise. And finally, the last pillar, which is, of course, remediation. And some of the questions that keep people up at night: how do I recover my data without introducing or reintroducing malware? How do I surgically recover exactly what I need without waiting for an entire snapshot to restore? And how can I automate recovery of my most critical applications? So a lot of questions about how do you recover safer and faster? And all of these are key challenges organizations face. And we offer a number of capabilities that help facilitate these, right? So the idea we want to get to is to not have this passive backup system. With Rubrik, you can actually go in very surgically, find exactly what you need at a file level, at an object level, to figure out what you want to restore. And we can do this very, very fast. A lot of recovery procedures, whether by compliance mandate or internal controls, you want to automate those processes so your team doesn't have to figure them out on the fly, which is one of the major things that we found delays recovery, when people have to figure out the recovery process as they go along. So the easy way to deal with that is to automate that recovery process. That way it's just a blueprint. Everyone knows how it's supposed to work. And when you need to, you can pull the trigger with confidence that it's going to work as intended. And you can see some of the benefits here meant to drive speed as well as safety. And all of this comes together in one unified platform, and that's what makes Rubrik so great. There aren't separate disjointed capabilities. It's part of one fundamental security cloud platform. So the idea is to think about these problems in a very comprehensive way, right? Historically, there have been vendors who focus on one aspect of the problem. They try to do scanning on a production environment, which taxes that environment. So there's a number of, I'd say, antiquated approaches to solving these problems. And it's probably why you're still seeing these month-long recovery cycles and the million-dollar costs. And Rubrik has a very different approach that leverages the backup environment. And we do that offline to conduct some of this analysis, to implement some of this automation, so that if you're attacked, you're able to recover as quickly and as safely as possible. So just to summarize, Rubrik really offers the ability to keep your data defended against cyber threats by making sure those threats are monitored proactively and continuously and analyzed very quickly, and making sure your business operations are recovered, hopefully in a matter of hours, not in over a month. One way to think about that recovery is to actually look at a real customer. So, this is really what this whole presentation is about. Can you afford to wait? Can you afford to wait weeks and months, which is what the average organization is going through today? And if you're in an industry, whether it's through regulatory pressures or other types of business pressures that can't afford to wait, we invite you to become more like Rubrik, where if you look at the quote here from one of our customers, when they got attacked, not only did they not have to pay the ransom, they had zero data loss, and they were fully recovered in less than 24 hours. That's really the kind of resilience and preparedness we want to help organizations to achieve. And we want to invite you to learn more about Rubrik, so hopefully your organization can achieve that type of resilience as well. So just to finish things up here, the most important asset for an organization is your data, right? You can have great cybersecurity controls at the application, network, and endpoint levels. But if an attacker does manage to get in and deny you access to your data, are you going to be able to recover within an acceptable time frame? That's why we believe in security at the point of data, backup infrastructure needs to be a key element of data security. And the strongest security posture you can adopt has to include securing your data, your most precious asset. So with that, thank you very much for your time today. I hope this was useful information for you. Please check out www.rubrik.com for more information.
Thank you, Zoltan, for that insightful session. This concludes today's webinar, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this excellent virtual event. And thank you again to our partner, Rubrik, and enjoy the rest of your day.